the role that Carlos plays in sort of leadership and identity in the sort of Mexican American uh, Latino experience in the United States is a big reason why I'm even here telling this story. You know, why I am able to be the director of this story. You know, I grew up in the Midwest in Lansing, Michigan, wanting nothing more than a voice. You know, I very badly wanted to. Towards the end of my high school career and going into college, I realized that I'm a storyteller. I was an actor, a writer, and I wanted to go out and do that. And when I looked into the media landscape, I would see all of these tropes and these stereotypes. But I also think what I would see was the sort of East Coast version of what it meant to be Latino or Mexican American. And the West Coast version of what that meant. But what I always thought in my head was there's, you know, what, 47 other states, 46 other states in between those two places. And there are a lot of us, a lot of brown people that are not living that existence, but we are still expected to be boxed in to what the media is saying about us. And so I found it very difficult as I was trying to figure out what that meant for myself, wanting to be somebody who moved into the media landscape. And this isn't because I'm trying to tie it into the Carlos documentary. This is actual truth. When I was a kid, my mother used to play Santana all the time. And I used to love to listen to it, and she would talk to me about him from time to time. And you know, my mother was my parents are migrant field workers. You know, they also talked to me a lot about Cesar Chavez. They talked to me a lot about Dolores Huerta. So I learned a lot of these different things. And when my mom noticed that I wanted to be a storyteller and move out into the world, and I was having a difficult time understanding what my path would be because I didn't feel like these other elements or these other things that have been shown to me and that were prevalent in the media landscape represented me. She said, "Remember Carlos?" She said that to me. And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "That's somebody who looked like you, who looks like you, that broke down those boundaries." She said they probably told him that he needed to play mariachi music and cumbia music and play these songs in Spanish, but he decided to go to Woodstock and play the shit out of that guitar and change the face of rock and roll. And he's continued to do that. She said, "You can do that too. You have to go for it." And so it's tough at times because as a young creator, when I was in high school and college, you really want to look out into that world and see people who look like you, that because that's the easier path. That's the thing to say, look, this person did this and I can do that too. So it was Carlos Santana who was on a different realm and spectrum, and also John Leguizamo, who was another person that I looked to. You know, I was given a bootleg VHS copy of Freak on Broadway, and I saw this person who looked a lot like me commanding an audience, telling a story that was his own story, his version of living. And I thought, well, I don't know if I can do that, but I'm going to try. I don't know that I can ever be Carlos Santana, but I know I can try. And so I think we do need leadership. I think we do need people that are showing us that we can blaze this path. But I think it's difficult because we have such a nuanced existence as brown people in this country. My experience growing up in Midwest United States is very different than someone's experience growing up in East Los Angeles. Is very different from somebody growing up who looks like me in Miami, Florida. Is very different than growing up in the Bronx. You know, but we're all, at least when we look out to the television and to radio and all these things, we're lumped into this thing. And so I think that it's difficult to find that because we all look the same, but we have vastly different experiences. And so to be able to come, and I never even told Carlos that story of like how he inspired me to sort of think outside the box, because I didn't want to shift that dynamic between the two of us as we were working on this project. But it's important to see people succeeding outside of the lanes that are expected of them. And I think that it's tough to encapsulate what that means as a leader, because oftentimes a leader is an example, and somebody can say, look, I came from that place and they're speaking exactly to my existence. But I think we need many leaders. We need many people showing us that we can, from whatever part of this country we are raised in, wherever we're coming from, we can be successful in all of these different realms. And I think that's the difficulty that I found growing up, was because I, as much as I knew about Cesar Chavez, I never worked in the fields. My parents did, my older siblings did, but I had a very different existence. And while I could empathize and I understood that struggle and I understood what that meant and why we fought, I also needed to understand that there was another lane for me as well, that I could do other things. So I hope I encapsulated all those things, but it's a very nuanced, difficult answer, which makes it difficult to say, like, this is who our leader is, because I think that it has to be a collection of people. We have to have a Mount Rushmore of Latino leaders, because we're a diverse, nuanced group of people. We, you look at, everyone's trying to say we want to really grab that large Latino audience but we don't. But we also don't know how to do that, and it's because you're taking this large Latino audience across the country and you're distilling it to these two coasts when everybody in the middle has a different experience and different interests. And so it's hard to capture all of that without just taking ideas from these coasts. You have to drive from, I always say, and my agents kick me when I say this, I say, I'm not the best director in the world. I'm not the best cinematographer in the world, but I'm very grounded in where I come from and where my feet were planted in the Midwest, and my POV of what that means as a storyteller, as a creator. And I think inherently that gives me a different perspective, which makes me unique. And that's something that we have to pass on to young creatives, is that you don't have to be these other things. You can be you and be grounded in your experience and still be very proud of who you are and where you come from.